Okay, noting that it's 7:01 on February 5th, 2025, I will call the Board of Health meeting to order. And we have a variety of items, but no variance hearings, so we will pretty much take things in order of who's present to discuss them and then take care of other matters after that. I want to find out whether there are any items be added to this agenda that were not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting, and then we can vote to amend the agenda. Actually, before we do that, we're going to go around and board members are going to announce their presence since we're in a virtual meeting. So Daryl Beardsley present.
Steve Constantine present.
Julie Dreyfus present.
Diana Hook present.
Rebecca come in yet? Okay. So there is an item that I would like to add just because it came in today. It's the Commissioner of the State Department of Public Health sent out a letter to colleagues in the public health arena. And I was just going to show that possibly with on screen for folks to know what communications are coming out from them. And it's a timely issue. And the other thing I could think of, Stephen, whether we just want to give the smallest of updates of the information we received today about the administrator search.
Sure, I can talk about that. So,
well, we won't talk about it right now, but we could vote to add it.
We have to add to the agenda. We can't talk about it without adding it. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. Oh, and Rebecca, I see you're on. Would you like to note that you're present?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Rebecca Honeywell, and I am present.
Thank you. Okay, so we have 2 items identified for possibly adding to the agenda. Anything else? If not, do we have a motion to add those 2 items to the agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? Hearing none.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell abstain because I didn't hear anything before I joined.
Okay. And Daryl Beardsley, aye. Okay, so first thing I'd like to do, we have someone who from property owner, 15 Everett Street. We reviewed plans at our last meeting, and he was here before the meeting started, so that he may get back to his family. Thought we could take that first. And I don't know if people had a chance to review the plans, but there has been a revision in what we saw last time. Tell me to stop on any of this if we need to go over this, but I was going to get down to the...
There are 2 plans on the agenda, the one the board previously reviewed and the new he has submitted, and that's it right there. You're on it.
Yeah.
I believe. So the most recent one is the one you're showing where the process was to try to make these 2 rooms over the barn to not afford privacy, to be able to be open. And so the applicant has submitted the new plan, as you can see on the agenda. And with that, he has opened up the top of the stairs and no walls in between as you get to the top, and the 2 rooms are to either side.
Yep. If you go to the next one, it gives the keep on scrolling down. It gives the dimensions of
I assume the next one that I'm looking for is more. Okay.
There we
Is this
go.
more to scale?
Yep, so it has like the 10 foot
Mm-hmm.
opening, so there's no privacy, and took away that closet just so it's completely open upstairs.
Yeah, and just for the
Mhm.
record, Keaton's the homeowner of 15 Everett Street, and he's the one that's offering the information. Thank you, Keaton.
Thank you, Mark, for clarifying that. And the other thing I noticed is that there's not, at least it did not look to me as if there are any doors either at the top of the stairs or the bottom of the stairs. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I'll say for me, this now looks like one large open space that, as Mark mentioned, doesn't afford the privacy that one would expect for a bedroom. Do other board members have any comments or questions?
This is much more open than the previous plan, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with Diana. This change does not give any semblance of privacy, which was our primary concern. It will still go back to something we told you guys before, which is you can have a closet, you can have multiple closets, you can line the walls with closets if you wanted to, which I would highly advise with small children. But so you can absolutely have a closet, but just not having, door to close to have privacy is the key here. So this looks great.
And just to
I
be
agree.
clear,
So-
this is the third floor we're looking at?
Floor over the barn, Stephen, if I can help.
It's the second floor, so it's the
That's
second
correct.
floor over the barn. Got it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Keaton, am I correct on that? This is not a third floor, correct?
Correct. Second floor.
Got it. Thank you.
And
Okay,
this is,
so,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, this is a preliminary building review. It
Mhm.
needs to be still submitted to the building department depending on the board's vote, if their vote is for this plan, then this would be, Keaton, just so you know, this would be the plan you would need to submit to the building department.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
And so there's 4 bedrooms and 4-bedroom septic. Is that
Yes.
correct, Mark?
That is
Okay.
correct. And I did tell Keaton that if he ever wants to do further review to see if it was always a 4-bedroom and it was only in the septic plan and the replacement system was put in very recently for a 4-bedroom, that there may be the opportunity for an engineer to come back to the board for a 5-bedroom, as long as was a 4-bedroom when designed and not ask for any increase in bedrooms. So we had that discussion today, and that's an option for down the road if he would like to do that.
Mhm. Okay. And so in total, I've already forgotten, I counted earlier, 1, 2, 3,
Let's see, I know that.
6, 7, I think it's 8 rooms in total at the moment.
See there, I wrote down some notes. Yeah.
Daryl, are you counting that the second floor barn is 1 or 2?
As 1.
Okay.
So then it's actually existing as a 6-room house, 3 bedrooms. And that's the second floor, 3 bedrooms. On the first floor, they have a kitchen, dining room, and a master bedroom. So there's 6 on existing. And the proposal, the way we're looking at it, was to go to a total of 9, 4 new rooms and a total of 9 rooms. Because they're changing downstairs a little bit too, which would be appropriate for a 4-bedroom septic system. 9 rooms is the maximum.
Okay. So 1, 2 here, just want to make
Yeah.
sure. And this is now 3,
Yeah.
4. And then 5, the upstairs here. And 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, the first floor would be counted as 2 rooms, the master bedroom and the kitchen,
Right.
or
Did
that
I count that already?
3.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, so it does go to 7. I
5.
apologize,
then the office and the family room,
Yeah,
and then the big room upstairs.
yes.
I get to 8 if we're counting the second floor barn as one room, which if you just come up the stairs and it's one giant finished space, I think that makes sense.
Yes, that
With
is,
no walls and nothing else, yeah. So I get to 8 as well.
Okay. All right, so they're well covered by their septic system. Okay. So Mark, I assume you'd like authorization to
yes, since it was at,
accept the building application if it comes in and it's following this general design that we're seeing here now.
that is correct. If I could get a vote of the board, since it already has been seen by the board, and at this point, the applicant has completed a plan that the board had requested, so I'd ask the board to give confirmation to it. And so when it comes in as a
Mhm.
building application, it would already have been set up as an approval by the board if the board so wishes.
Okay, so do we have a motion to authorize the agent to approve the building application, provided that the plans are in accordance with what we have reviewed this evening and find reasonable to approve?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Pete Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca, you're on mute.
Thank you. Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye. Thank you, Keaton.
Thank you, Keaton.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it.
And we'll catch up to you later, Keaton, for the house inspection. I know we'll work on that as we discussed earlier. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thanks, everyone.
Aye.
Okay.
Just so the board knows, the
So-
house was inspected for the certificate of compliance because it was done during COVID. And Keaton has been very willing to go forward and have that inspected. It just, today was not the perfect day for that. So that'll be worked out in the next week or so.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think the other person I saw in early is Elizabeth.
I believe so, and I don't know, I believe Henry Ladd is here too as the builder.
Yes, correct.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Elizabeth. Hello, Henry. So they are here, Daryl. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Mark, would you like to walk through what we're going to?
Yeah, I
review?
initially had requested this go to the board to do a room count, and the board did review it at the last meeting, as well as I just want to make sure the basement was okay with the board. And since then, they've given us these drawings and I believe pictures. I don't know if the pictures made it to the agenda, but I remember seeing that
Yeah,
level that Elizabeth was mentioning. I think you're in that same room again, aren't you, Elizabeth? Yes. So, and then when we get
I'll
to,
get down to the photos so that
Yeah.
people can see it on screen.
and when we got to the first floor, that's where you were just there, Daryl, in the light green area. Oh, there we go. The pictures are important as well.
All right. You want to see the floor plan as a reminder first?
Sure, but thank you for drawing up the pictures. So
No. Yeah.
that's the first floor. And the intention is to move the bedroom where the office is going. So you see, I can't catch the number on that. I think it's room number, I don't know if it says 10. There we go. 9. Room number 9 is a bedroom right now. Excuse me. Excuse me. And it's going to turn into an office. And then the intent is to add on to the back and make that the master bedroom. Or one of the bedrooms, I'll say.
Mhm.
So they're not increasing bedroom count, but it became a room count discussion, especially right in that green area of the eating kitchen room. And that's where the pictures may help.
Yes. I think that's the part we were having the most questions about. Okay, well, we'll come back to this. All right, back to the photos. think that's the first, oh, there we go, that's the first. Okay, so this is the, I don't know.
This is the ground level room labeled as room number 2 on the
Oh.
ground level floor plan. And it's also the room where
Mhm.
Elizabeth is sitting, correct, Elizabeth?
Yes, that's correct.
And so this is not the one that has the walkout. Correct? This is the one at the.
Correct.
I'm
Yeah,
guessing,
this
front of
is
the
the
house
one,
with-
yeah, with the front of the house, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And as we discussed before, Elizabeth, it's designed almost as a split, correct?
I think our architect called it a raised ranch.
Modified
So the most of the living space is on the upper floor. Our bedrooms are on the same level as the kitchen and living space, and then this downstairs level, which is partially below grade, has these extra rooms that are finished. But you sort of, I think there was a question about the front door last time. You enter and you can either go up or down from the front door.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think that's coming up soon.
So this,
That's
I
the
don't know
upper
why I
deck.
can't, not able to shrink this any further. So that.
But that's
you
looking
see
from the
picture
kitchen.
more completely, but any case, this is
Mhm.
the pass through from the kitchen to
Yes.
the kitchen or the dining table. I'm not sure which to refer to it as.
If it's considered part of the kitchen, we would call it the eat-in kitchen table.
Mhm.
And that's what the board sometimes will look at depending on the spatial configurations of the two rooms.
I'm gonna divert for 1 second to ask a clarifying question on a totally different floor for a totally different room. Just to throw us off tonight. For the extension that's being made off of the garage, I see it labeled on the foundation basement plans. That is proposed to be an unconditioned, unfinished space, correct?
Correct.
And the current garage is unconditioned, unfinished, and will stay so? Okay, that's,
Correct.
I don't think we called that out last time. So for me, this is very helpful, the pictures of the pass through the kitchen, as well as the windows in the kind of room to your left when you enter in the main door. That was all helpful. You know, for me, I don't feel comfortable deed restricting either of these basement foundation rooms to not be bedrooms, because they very well could be bedrooms. They offer egress, there's a walkout. You know, this is a 4-bedroom home. Obviously, one of those rooms was considered a home, or a bedroom at one point in time. And on the, now going back to where we are, Daryl, sorry, I promise I'm getting back to where you are in your pictures.
No, that's
For
fine.
me, when I look at the division between where the dining table is and the kitchen, I mean, this really looks like 2 distinct spaces for me. And so I think we're back to, we don't have a bedroom count issue, we have a room count issue. And so when I was breaking this down, and I completely see what you guys are doing, you're trying to improve the size of the closets, so you actually have room in your bedroom closets, you're just trying to make more space, and you're trying to have a spot where you could go and do work from home without being in the mainstream. Completely get that. And so and this is where, for me, it really kind of came down to was the creation of that office space on we're calling it the first floor, was what was kind of putting us over in room count. And so currently that's proposed to be accessible through the hallway. I know it says a glass door, where that is the access in and out of that space. And, you know, just to throw an idea out there to the board, and then also potentially to the homeowner, is when the board has looked at primary suites, they often include an ensuite, they might include walk-in closets, and they might include a like dressing area, other space that is only accessible through the bedroom. And so without any other entrance or exit into that room through another space. So an idea, and for me, this would pass muster. If the entrance into what is that newly created, and it's not a big area, I know that office space. If that was only accessible through the primary bedroom and no longer through the hallway, just sheer wall in the hallway, then that would look like a primary suite that we have approved in the past. And then we can get to the 9 rooms that we need for the system to be in compliance. But that's
Yeah,
my take.
I was thinking the same thing, and I know it changes a bit the dynamic of how you might use that room and how it's accessible by others. But if the door here into the primary bedroom was instead here, that would do it. That would make this a suite. Or we kept this door here, then moving the door here to here.
But it still is
Would
a
also
room that
result
has
in it being a suite.
privacy.
What we've done in the past, though, is we have allowed, like, they've been labeled different ways for bedroom suites, parent retreat rooms. It could be the office area for the bedroom. We're starting to see more and more of that as becoming bedroom suites for past historical information.
But it's still a room that can allow privacy, and it doesn't really matter where the doors are. We have a antique house that has 3 rooms and no hall. You go through each room to get to the other. So it really doesn't differentiate it from the rules.
Well, this isn't an antique. This is, I don't know the age of this house, but I'm sure it's not considered an antique, just by the design of the home. We have consistently, when we've had homes where you've had a room or a space that you can only access by going through another area, we've consistently not called those distinct rooms or allowed those to be part of a suite if they're then part of again, it's usually part of a primary bedroom. That's how the board has historically treated it. I think that is how I would look at this if the access to the space was changed. Otherwise, you know, if it continues to be accessible through the hallway, then that really looks like a 10th room, which I would say would offer a semblance of privacy and could easily be turned into a bedroom, not by the current homeowners, but like in theory, in the future, it could be potentially another bedroom.
Can I ask a clarifying question more for my edification than anything perhaps? But with
Absolutely.
there's the living room and family room spaces on the main living floor. So when you exit the eat-in kitchen dining room area of debate there, so between the blue and yellow spaces, that is a totally open area. The family room is set down 3 steps, but it is a totally open area. Is there any scenario where that is considered a single room? And does that alleviate the room count issue?
It's always a bit difficult because houses are so variable in their layouts. And there are times when, you know, the amount of floor space can be considered one room, but there's sort of significant signal of divide, the railing, the steps down. So we typically haven't, there are some gray areas in this, but we just try to be consistent in how we approach it from home to home. I'm a little torn over the kitchen. I agree with Julie that they're very distinct spaces of where the, I'll call a kitchen table for the moment, but the table is versus the cooking prep area. And so I can't think of really another example where I've seen something that the kitchen hasn't had some eat-in portion, and yet is separated from where the table is in a way that really does look like different rooms. So it's, I'm torn on that, but what Julie mentioned earlier about creating a suite with the office as part of the primary bedroom, that makes it easy for a determination, because we do have a lot of precedent for that.
Still hard because we're following state guidelines. We didn't make these definitions up. We're supposed to be following state and local regulations, and I just don't feel comfortable not just sort of following the rules. I mean, it's a proxy for septic needs and septic waste being deposited into the overburden and the potentially getting into the groundwater. And this homeowner well will be near the septic system. So really, it's in their best interest to have a septic system that has capacity to handle all of the septic material that could arise from this location. So the state has just chosen a proxy to correlate with how to determine what the septic needs are for an address. So I think that it's really in the homeowner's best interest to follow the guidelines. I mean, it's too bad but if they want to do this, this is what we're supposed to be guiding them toward.
Diana or Stephen, do you have any questions or comments?
I just looking at that bedroom 9, I mean, the room 9, which is gonna be the office space. I could see it going either way, either having an entrance from room 3, and just having that bedroom suite include that office, or just accessing it from that short hallway. I don't really see that much of a difference. But again, I'm not a constructor or home builder, so I could go either way.
And I'm looking at the original room 9, the walls are already there. They already exist.
I think it's being carved out in the addition that's pushing the primary out. I think they're carving out a space. I will let the architect speak to that. He'll be able to do a better job than I am.
Sure. As a point of clarification, I'm the general contractor, but I can speak to
Oh,
that
sure.
point. So if you look at the second page of the PDF document, it can show you that bedroom 3 has an attached closet. And it's from that, so the office space gets carved into room 3 here, and then the primary bedroom extends out from there.
Okay.
And just while I have the floor for 1 second, Elizabeth and I were just having a sidebar, and Elizabeth, please speak up if I'm misrepresenting anything here, but we would be perfectly comfortable moving the door to the suite so that room number 9 office is all within the suite, if that is a path to approval.
That is for me.
Yeah, for me, that's the case. It's hard to, I think you brought up a really good point, Henry, in terms of why is currently labeled yellow room 8 and blue room 7, two different spaces. And it's tricky. The level change and the existence of a railing, I think really in the past, we've had issues with that where we've called that to 2 separate spaces because of that level change and the presence of a railing or a half wall or something that makes them feel distinct, where they would potentially function differently. So just drawing on precedent, that's how I would call those 2, but it was a great question.
Thank you for the clarification.
No, I do think moving the door for that room number 9, because I'm thinking some other homes in Sherborn, that would be the clothing closet.
Okay, so so I assume that these plans are still, this is almost similar to the other one,
Yes.
potentially, Mark.
That is
Yeah.
correct. These are preliminary. What brought this to
Mhm.
our attention was, and we need to do that tonight as well, is there's a request to move the septic tank so they can do this addition. So the two
Mhm.
would be in concert with each other. So when they submit the building application, it would be pending the septic system tank relocation. They can come in together and one would be conditional to the other. But after the board makes a decision on the building plans, then I would ask the board to approve the septic plan for the tank relocation so they can do this addition.
Okay. So, for the homeowners, are you okay if we take a vote now to approve the plans conditional somewhat to them coming in showing that there's a suite?
Yeah,
Right.
just so I understand the process, we can have the architect update the drawing to move that door, and then would we have submit for another meeting, or at that point, or will we just trying to figure out what we do, what the next step is, but it seems like that's the path forward if we are all in agreement.
My plan would be to ask for a motion for the board to approve the agent to or to authorize the agent to approve the building plans, provided that they reflect what we've just talked about, to get it to the appropriate number of rooms in the house.
And once the vote is taken, I can easily check that out and share it if so be with any of the board members. Again, we're moving the door to the new bedroom to be out in the opposite end of the room number 9. So when you walk through that door, you can either go into room number 9 or the room number 3, the new room. So where that arrow is, Daryl, you would want, if I'm not mistaken, the board's voting to put the door in front of the 2 rooms.
Could we also move the entry door out to the other side of the linen closet if you were to come out of the existing room number 9
Yeah.
and have
That's
the
what I
door to the
thought.
left?
Yeah, I thought that's what the board meant, but that's
Okay.
what I was asking for
Oh,
clarity.
no, to me, it could have been either way.
Let's see. Okay,
Either door into room 9 is there, or the doorway into the suite is here.
okay, thank you.
And maybe there's another possibility too, but the concept is that then they are all those rooms are intertwined.
We can consult the
all
architect
access.
on the details of that, but the intent
Yeah.
is clear and pending the board's
Okay.
approval, of course.
Okay. All right. And I'll just throw it out again there that, the kitchen dining table arrangement is right on the edge, but still looks very much like 2 separate rooms. But if that ever changed in the future, for whatever reason, that the sense of the walls here changed and it was more open, that might, it would really depend, but I could see that this is on the edge of being 1 room, but not quite there yet. So, okay. Are we ready for a motion?
Think so.
Okay, so do we have a motion to authorize the health agent to approve the building plans, provided that they reflect the changes needed to create a suite involving rooms 3 and 9 when the plans come in?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, nay.
Carol
Does not
Beardsley,
protect
aye.
public health in any way. Sorry.
Okay, and so, Mark, now, let me
Yes.
see, bring up the other
Yes, it's a building,
part of it. Yeah.
septic permit number 24-100. It's for a septic tank relocation. I can't remember if Jean put it on this agenda, but
Yes,
oh,
I
good.
think so.
So that way you can see it. And the tank is right in the area where they want to put this addition. So they would need to move the septic tank. They are requesting to move the septic tank. I found the plans to be in compliance with Title V and our regulations. You'll see as it opens up where the tank is presently, and they're moving it. I believe it's 11 point something. I have it here. They're going 12.8 feet away from the proposed addition. And it's a replacement septic tank. I'm not for sure if they're going to try to save the old one, but the engineer, if it's not a monolithic it's a 1,500 gallon tank, but if it's not monolithic, then they'd have to replace it with a new tank. I'm not sure, Henry or Elizabeth, if you know offhand what their intent is on that.
My understanding is that I believe we are going to try to salvage reuse the tank that's there. My understanding is that it's should still be in good condition and that they should be able to move it.
Yeah, your system's not that old, so that's a definite
Right.
possibility. Obviously, when they do that, if anything cracks or breaks during the process, it
Right.
might just be easier just to put a new one in, but that's
Mhm.
an option. So I would ask that that be
And
an
if-
option to the approval.
And if that can be done, it'd be a really great conservation of materials in addition.
Yep.
So
As long as it's
I hope it
mono,
works
Yes,
for
we
you.
certainly prefer that.
when they go to check the tank, they're gonna have to make sure it's monolithic. That's what the engineer is calling for. That means basically it's like a whole tank is one with a top that goes over it. So if it's not, then it would have to be a changed out tank. With that, I would recommend approval of the septic plan as presented with the notes made.
Okay.
Art, just real quick, is this,
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, I just wanted to ask, this is a gravity feed, right? No,
That it is. It's a long gravity feed. The septic system's a good distance away in the backyard, but it is a gravity fed septic.
and it's an Elgin systems. Do we know the age? I know you said it wasn't that old, but
I'm just sorry for the noise. I'm just opening up the rest of the plan. I don't know if he shows the age on it. I don't know, but Elizabeth, do you know how old the septic system is?
I don't want to misspeak, so I want to try to open it on my end, but I believe
I don't think he put the age.
2018.
It was in between like 2005 and 15, I believe, somewhere in that range.
okay.
Oh, sorry, am I off?
And it is Elgin's, they're B43 modules. But again, I remember being out there, Kurt. I think within the last 10 to 15 years, it was put in. And I'll see if I can find a date on the plan. Don't see one, but it is a fairly new system.
Okay, and we know from experience that these monolithic 2-compartment tanks, they're usually good after those number of years, or?
Well, that's why before they decide on that, they're going to have to evaluate it. The designer will need to go out with the installer to evaluate to see if if there's no seam cracks and it's in good condition, then that would be a valuable use of reusing it. But they won't know until they actually start digging around it and looking inside it after they pump it out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the plan for the relocation of the septic system tank?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Becca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye. Okay. Well, I hope the tank movement goes well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for everyone's help tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
very well.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Night. Okay.
just for the record, I have the
Yeah,
approved plan for this property. It was 2017. Just for the record.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, so I think the next item up, and so Mark, you'll be off screen for this portion. This is 34 Brush Hill Road.
I will be off. Thank you.
And Julie, I'm going to stop sharing so that the
Yep.
swifter screen can.
Yep. I told you to do that. Okay. Let me just pull it up, Joe. All right. I think you're seeing the plans.
Yes.
I want to make this bigger. Oh. Apologies, I should have resized this before I started screen sharing. Did you want to start it, Daryl? Did you want me to start it?
If you'd like to, feel free.
Well, okay, how about I will. So if we all recall at our last meeting, we had called for a series of changes to this plan, primarily to increase, to raise the leaching field by a foot and make the adjustments accordingly. Mark Bartlett of Stantec has reviewed all of the changes that we had asked for on this plan that you see before you and said that everything looked appropriate and what the board had called for. I'm going to use, Bob had actually sent us a nice email describing the changes to this plan. And so I'm just going to kind of summarize what that is because it's a nice bulleted description. So the leaching field was raised by 1 foot. This includes all grading associated with the leaching field and below the retaining wall. The retaining wall that we had talked about, this was raised 1 foot, but it's still a 4 foot maximum height retaining wall. And one of the things that Mark had recommended and was implemented here was an impermeable barrier be added just to the inside of the wall. The septic tank number 1 and the D box were raised by 1 foot accordingly. Unit 1 was raised to accommodate the change in grade as well. One of the things Mark had called out on his deficiency list or his notes was that a foundation drain note be called out for units 3 and 4 in particular, and that was done here, particularly for units 3 and 4 to ensure that the outlets are more than 200 feet from the leaching field. And maybe I should scroll down because units 3 and 4, I'm sorry, every time I scroll, it seems to jump. If I'm not showing the spot you want on the plans, please instruct me to move it. We also asked on sheet 2 that the revisions be made so the cross-section profile, here I will actually shift, right, to reflect the impermeable barrier. And we'll see that here. It's called out. And the D box was raised a foot. They did rerun the pump report. I'm not going to pull that up now because I don't think we need to review that, but Mark has looked at it and the small changes that were necessary were in fact made, and he said that that looked great. And that was basically everything that we had asked for. And again, Mark Bartlett has reviewed this and said all looks according to what was requested at the last meeting.
So, unfortunately, I forgot to verify something with Mark Bartlett, and that is whether I'm looking for something scale, but it's not easy to do on a screen. Simply, here we go. Okay. About whether it's still 15 feet from the edge of the SAS, the outer edge of the trenches to the wall.
I want to see if I'm following you, Daryl. I
think
can't
it
tell
is
that's-
from
sound
the kind
distant.
of rough measurements I'm making here on screen.
Well, in the profile, which is on screen now, if you see my cursor, it calls out here that there's 15 feet from the wall to, this is the reserve trench.
Oh,
I
great.
roughly remember Mark then noting that to then this was down gradient of trenches, it was then 18 feet, which makes sense to me, that it'd be another 3. And so that is called out as 15, which was the previous update we had, I think Mark had asked for, yeah.
Yeah, and Julie, if I could just make a comment about that.
Sure.
So it's that 15-foot distance that negated the requirement for the impermeable barrier. But as you know, at your meeting, you asked us for that, and we did in fact put it in, but it's not required by the regulations because of exactly what your cursor is on right now, that it's 15 feet away. So thank you.
Yep. Thanks for clarifying that, Bob. And I remember Mark saying that that was his best practice recommendation. So thank you for doing
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's why I was asking. Sorry, I hadn't noticed that on the second sheet.
I see Rebecca has her hand raised.
Yeah, who is somebody taking minutes for this meeting?
Well, the minutes clerk will watch the recording.
Okay,
Take
because I
minutes.
just want to make sure that it's on the record that I object to all 5 of the variances that the Board of Health allowed, because we are the regulatory board that protects public health in Sherborn. We have the jurisdiction over drinking water in the town of Sherborn. And even though Chapter 40B allows variances from local regulations, we should not be supporting anything that can endanger public health. And in this particular case, we have scientists, experts who spoke using objective scientific evaluation and advised us that these changes would lead to potential to endanger drinking water in not only the wells of existing homes, but in the wells of the future homes and residents in affordable housing. I think it's important that we not underestimate and not fulfill our responsibility towards the residents of Sherborn. And I think we need to seriously reevaluate why we would support these changes. Who's going to take the liability and who's going to be responsible for these poor residents who might have less means or less education, who may not be able to turn around and sue Mr. Murchison if their water is contaminated, or the town. And so I think we need to plan well and make sure that this protects public health for every resident in Sherborn.
Julie, may I speak?
I want that on the record, please.
Julie, may I speak?
Sure, and hang on one second, Bob. And there will be minutes from the very extended meeting we had last week. We're discussing the waivers, of which your point had come across at that meeting as well, and so that will be in those minutes.
Thanks. I'd also like it in this meeting. Thank you.
It will be now.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Sure. The first thing I'd like to say is that I find it really offensive that Rebecca has suggested that people that would live in affordable housing would be less educated than the rest of us. I think that's a really, really offensive statement. And I'm sorry I have to call that out.
I never said that. potential that
Rebecca, I am
might not
speaking.
have the
When I am
resources
done speaking,
do.
I have been recognized, and when I am done speaking, you, I'm sure, will be recognized again.
Okay, thank you.
May I finish my comments, Julie?
Go ahead.
So I find that really offensive. I do want to say that Rebecca does not understand what we're doing here tonight. We are reviewing, and I'm hoping that you will vote on a Title V application. That's all we are doing tonight here. And we are not seeking a single variance from Title V. This plan, according to my engineer, according to Stantec, the board's agent, and everyone else I've talked to who has looked at it, is Title V compliant. We are not seeking a single variance. So I don't understand why Rebecca would say that she doesn't want to give variances. That's not a discussion tonight. There are no variances requested or before you tonight. This is a compliant system, and we're hoping to have you take a vote on it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for making a compliant system, but the soils in this location do not have the potential or do not have the reliable ability to deal with the septic efflux, which has then in turn the risk of contaminating drinking water in spite of compliance with Title V. And we can't predict those things. We have to rely on our experts to do that. And that's my point.
Okay, I think you both have stated your points clearly. I think they'll be recorded in the record. I agree that we're not discussing the ZBA memo tonight. That's not what is on our agenda. We are reviewing the Title V application before us, of which our agent does not find any deficiencies at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Daryl, so at this point, I think we're ready to move this for approval. I believe Mark had called out a couple of recommended conditions or recommendations he made to the board for conditions, plus our standard garbage grinder deed restriction and things like that. Do you want me I'll just keep going. Interrupt me when you're, so one of the things, and I'm going back to, Mark had said a memorandum. It was on January 16th originally, and we discussed it at the January 22nd meeting. It was number 3. He had made the recommended condition to the board that we shall require that benchmarks shall be set with elevations by the surveyor of record, with witness stakes prior to the start of construction, as well as will continue to stay up after construction so that they are visible to the board's agent. That seems pretty straightforward.
And practical.
And very practical. The second recommendation he made is referring to the wall under his notes, or his memorandum. It was number 12, and it was a recommendation that a Massachusetts registered structural engineer be the one to design with their stamp the wall that includes particularly the calculations for a factor of safety against overturning, sliding, and bearing capacity, and conditions of high groundwater, if any, should be factored into the design. And so he said that there would be a condition to design the wall as basically what I just stated. And that the board shall receive a copy of the design submitted to the Sherborn building inspector. I have to find a way to make that a little more succinct as a condition. And other things that I had noted were our standard. This was not designed for garbage grinders, and so there would need to be a deed restriction. I believe we usually ask for that. Daryl, help me out here. At what stage it is we want to see the deed restriction prior to the construction of the home?
prior to the release
sequencing.
of the plan.
Okay, okay, perfect. So for the release of the plan, so we need the garbage. I think the one thing I'm confused, and I looked to the board for this, I assume that would go in the master deed for the condo association too?
It has to be registered at the Middlesex County Registry of Deeds. Could also be a copy attached to their
Okay,
association documents, but it needs to be registered.
right. And just making sure that there's clear communication to the future owners not to go add it in later. Which is the case for everyone, don't add it in later. We usually make a condition about if there are any changes to lot lines, positions of the buildings, any changes that affect the system as proposed, that it comes back before us. And I believe the last I heard is that we have some outstanding revision fees. So those would need to be paid in full for the release of the plans.
Yeah.
So for me,
So-
that's 5. Did I get that wrong? Am I not current?
No, we do. There are
Okay.
outstanding fees. So
Okay,
there are on the plan in the lower right-hand corner, it shows that there have been 4 revisions. So there was the original payment with the application. There was also a payment of $150 for the second revision, but still outstanding are the third revision at $200 and the fourth revision at $300.
okay. And Bob, I'm sure Jean has records of that if that's not clear, what's still outstanding.
And is that the list? Because I do have some comments, Julie, if that's all right.
I mean, that's what I have. I'm not sure if other board members have additional. Let's see if other board members have other conditions that they're thinking about.
No,
I
I
have
do not.
nothing to add.
Can't think of anything.
Okay,
Alright.
could we
Go
go
ahead.
through, can you just remind, I
Sure.
don't have a pen in front of me. I didn't.
Sure. So the first one was the benchmarks.
Yeah, I have no objection to that. So what's the second?
The second one was that a registered structural engineer be the one to design the
So-
wall and that those
so-
plans be provided.
So, you're about to approve something for me and I'm very grateful. But I can't help myself in telling you that what you're asking for, I'm required by law, under state law, to provide that to the building inspector. And of course I will. But you're putting a condition on the Title V plan that Title V never mentions this requirement. It's a building requirement, and I absolutely am going to comply with it. But I really think it's not good practice in a Title V approval to put conditions that aren't in Title V. So that's number 2. Let's go on to number 3.
Garbage grinder deed restriction.
Now, that one, someone will have to help me out here. If that's in Title V, I don't object. If it's not in Title V and it's a local requirement, then I would ask that you send it to the ZBA and they'll probably put it on the plan. But I guess I'm a little bit of a stickler for, I don't want conditions in a Title V approval that aren't requirements of Title V, if that makes sense. So what's number
Totally makes sense, but I don't believe that the design flow has the additional capacity required for a garbage grinder deed restriction, and that's.
Well, all I'm trying to say, and on this one, I know with the wall issue, the design of the wall, which we absolutely will do, that is not in Title V for sure. What I don't know is whether the deed restriction is required under Title V. If it is, then it is a condition you should put in. If it's not mentioned in Title V, in other words, we're designing to it and we're not going to put in garbage grinders, and it's not, deed restrictions are not required under Title V, then I don't think you should force that through on a Title V approval. Again, if you go to ZBA, I'm sure they'll put that condition on me. It's going to turn out the same way. I'm trying to clean up process here a little bit. And then what's the next one after that, Julie?
Sure, I'm sharing my screen, so I can't go and check Title
Sorry,
V.
sorry.
But
The other one,
the
oh, go
changes,
ahead.
so what we standard to do, basically, if there are any changes that would affect the application.
Well, that would
uh,
affect a
can be-
Title V
The
system.
Title V, exactly.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
The components that we adjudicate per Title V, if anything changes relative to that it
Fair
comes
enough.
back before us.
Of course, yep.
And that's pretty
No.
standard.
No objection to that. It's the wall one bothers me because, you know, that's in the purview of the building inspector and he will absolutely enforce it and I will absolutely comply with it. But I just adding things to conditions that aren't part of the Title V regulations, I think is not a good form for the board or for me.
So, well, how about as a board, we'll talk about that. We don't have Mark here, but I hear your point, but I think as a board, we have to decide.
And if you need to put those all in, I'll accept it and take the the approval. Don't get me wrong, Julie. I'm just trying to the extent I can, clean up process a little bit.
And then the final one was the fees, the revision fees, just be paid in full for the release.
Yeah, I mean, of course I'll pay those, but to ask me to pay when the only reason the change was made at the end was because I was doing something that wasn't in the regulations, in trying to compromise and be collaborative with you all, seems a little bit of a bridge too far, but if you want it, I'll pay it. It's a matter of principle, but
Sure. I think we can talk about that as a board too. Why don't we take, so we'll go back to the board.
thank you, Julie.
Sure. So let's start with the fee component. My stance is pretty simple, is that we need to be able to have something that comes into the town to help in the smallest of way offset the time of the staff and the time that it takes them for these revisions, particularly since we're paying for a supplemental agent. I think this is a nominal cost, and I think that it is a step towards supporting the work of the staff. And I would like to keep that in there. That's my take.
I will say ditto to that. And the other point is that this is consistent with how the fees are applied for others in town. And so it would not be fair to not do it in this case. Although we rarely see this many revisions on plans, but this is a larger, more complex system that's gone through larger changes, and I'd say most other projects do. So really the revision steps have been bigger because the changes have been bigger because of the size of the system in part and the complexity of the site.
Vote from the other board members, thoughts on the fee requirement.
And I guess don't we typically charge fees for revisions plans?
That is our
Yeah.
fee schedule.
It is typical, standard. For revisions is not typical, but that doesn't mean that when it does happen that the fees are not charged.
I've got to agree too with Julian and Daryl on this. For the sake of consistency, just to make sure that we're using the same process across other projects as well. Just seems to make sense to me. Again, I haven't been on a lot of projects, but I think just for the sake of consistency. And again, we've got expenses as well for the supplemental agents. So yeah, I think it makes sense.
Rebecca, do you want to weigh in on the fee?
Well, I think that the project needed to be changed for multiple different reasons, and the regulations were known in advance, the soil analysis was all known in advance. So changes were made because we identified weaknesses in the design, and I think that we need to be consistent with our policy because they were designed with full knowledge. And so I think it's totally fine. I mean, sometimes things were changed because we identified problems that needed to be fixed.
Okay, I think we have a consensus there. Let's go to the, I could stop screen
Yeah.
sharing and look for the garbage grinder deed restriction in Title V, but again, the flow has not been designed to handle a garbage grinder in any of these homes, especially all of these homes, and so, I mean, my inclination is this is consistent standard practice. If nothing else, the deed restriction is intended to be a tool to communicate to future homeowners. Don't put in a garbage grinder. This is a shared system. Don't do it. Compost.
Julie, could I suggest a compromise? Which is that the board put a condition that the deed restriction be put in place if in fact, in the light of day tomorrow, we find that it is a requirement of Title V. And then I'll do it. If it's required by Title V, I'll do it.
I
Private
have
well
to say that I would,
it's different. These are private well systems, and these are wet soils. It's not Title V. The vast majority of systems are in dealing with situations where there's no risk to the drinking water. So it's irrelevant whether it's Title V because that's for public water supply, and these are private systems. So we need to follow our private well regulation.
To your, Bob, I don't know how we implement that. Like, just that doesn't, I don't see how that process actually unfolds. I understand what you're suggesting.
I'm just suggesting that you and or any other member of the board look in Title V, search under deed restriction tomorrow in Title V, and if it's there, in other words, the condition you vote on tonight, I don't want to belabor this too much longer. The condition you vote on tonight is that there will be a deed restriction if it's required by Title V. Simple.
I don't think it's relevant when you have private septic systems and private wells in proximity. I don't think you can use Title V because we don't, in most of the places where your generalization that you're trying to trap us into a corner with is in a completely different circumstances. We are talking about homeowners with private well systems and private septic systems. If a garbage grinder destroys the septic system's ability to function, their drinking water is going to get contaminated because the system will fail. And not only that, but other neighbors will have the endangered water. So it's totally irrelevant whether Title V has this because the majority of situations we have public sewer infrastructure in every other community in town, in the state, with the exception of 8 or some very small number of under 351 towns. I think that it's completely, you're taking things out of context and it's not fair.
Julie, just in the interest of all of our sanity, let's go with it.
I do not agree at all.
No, let's go with your suggestion, Julie. I'll accept. I give up. White flag. I can't listen to this anymore. Let's move on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I was starting to go through Title V. But there definitely has not been a design flow calculation for it.
I agree with that. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
yes. And I also, I'll just weigh in that my perspective is that the system would not be sized right if garbage grinders were put in.
Totally agree.
And it's our duty to try to make sure that that condition does not happen. And that's
your
our
duty
obligation.
is to regulate Title V.
Excuse me, you did not want to be spoken over earlier this evening, and I would appreciate the same. So, where was I?
Garbage grinders.
We have responsibility as the approving authority. Do our best to ensure that the system is not used improperly. And I think that this garbage grinder deed restriction is entirely important for the reason that Julie pointed out earlier, that it alerts future residents of the project about what they can and cannot do in order to maintain their septic system.
And hope that people will follow it. Of course, we know that people still put them in anyways, but hopefully no one will do that. And the final, this is one that I'm actually, this one I'm unclear about, is the engineered wall. And in terms of requiring that, I guess there was kind of two parts within Mark's recommendation, that it was the walls designed by a registered structural engineer, and that the plans be provided to us along with the building inspector. I don't know enough about the building code to know one way or another about that. And so
In the
I kinda-
building code, for sure.
I have no doubt it's in how the two intertwine. We don't often deal with this particular issue. So I'm gonna look to the rest of the board to see what you guys think. I'm really going through Mark's recommendations.
Yes. So again, I think that just as flow is integral to the design of the system, this retaining wall is integral to the functioning of the septic system. And to not have some kind of assurance that the wall is going to function properly, I think would be irresponsible of us as the approving authority.
I think there's confusion on my point. My point is that it is absolutely required by law, but it's not something that the Sherborn Board of Health regulates. It's Chris Canny's job to regulate it. Go ahead, put it in. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do it. I'm just trying to get this board to understand my frustration, which is you're regulating in places where you don't have that authority and it's inappropriate. Go ahead, do it. I'm losing this conversation, I know, and it's all good.
Or
I'm
here's the
appreciative.
other option. The other option is that we don't make a decision this evening, and at our next meeting, we could research all of this and we'll address it then.
Well, I guess, and I'm wondering if the building inspector, if it's, the plans are done by a structural engineer and the building inspector approves the plans, does it need to then come back to us? I mean, I would want the building inspector to approve the plans.
Mhm.
Yes, and
And
I
it-
would want someone who understands there's a wall and then there's a wall that's holding back the septic system. So I'd like to see some guarantee that the wall is going to work for the septic system, because otherwise we're approving something that will not function appropriately in the longer term.
So functionally, what Mark was saying, and again, I'm looking at his comments. He is not here tonight to speak in detail. What he's saying is that that wall be constructed per code. That we all agree with should happen, will happen, has to happen. The second half, which is not exactly listed in Title V, is that we be given, the Board of Health or the board be given notice that that wall in fact has been engineered, that it's been signed off by the building inspector. It is a communication.
I'm happy to provide that notice.
And so I think realistically, it is not the role of our health agent to review the structural integrity of that wall. It is not, he is not proposing that. That is not his suggestion, right? He is just dotting I's and crossing T's, that since that is a critical component to the functioning of the system, to ensure that all of that has happened and we have it within our records as part of the design of the system. And so I see this as a closing of just making sure that we have that information as the system is constructed. Or before
I
it's
agree with that.
functional.
We are not reviewing it. That is not, we are not the structural engineering department. but we need the assurances. It's part of our due diligence. A critical
sounds like-
component of this system.
It's a communication issue, right? We just need to make sure that this is communicated to Chris, and that Bob executes on that and it's approved. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's part of, right, because the wall is part of the, as I said before, the design of the system. We are not reviewing the wall. We are ensuring that the wall was reviewed,
Right.
right? And so this feels, so I guess we're at the compromise point, which is, we are not suggesting that we are regulating the structural design of this wall in any way. We are ensuring that the appropriate authority is doing so, and that is being communicated back to us. And that
Agree
is,
with
that
that.
is simply, and by putting that as a condition, it is the regulatory mechanism to ensure that loop is closed.
Well put.
That's my take. I don't
My
think it
take is
is more, I do not think it is any more restrictive than the garbage grinder deed restriction. Again, that's a closing of the loop. I know you don't agree with us, Bob.
But we're at the finish line here, so I'm trying to be quiet.
Does anyone, it sounds like we have maybe not full agreement, but at least a majority agree about how that condition would, how we would put that as in a condition, right? We are not reviewing the engineered, okay. So now we have to actually craft a motion. I hate doing these. Okay, so am I crafting the motion, Daryl? You're better at these than I am. I'm passing a baton to you unless you don't want to take it.
Okay. All right, give me just a moment. Let's see.
And I'm happy
Yep.
to review some of the
Mark's
conditions.
thing, maybe you could help with some of the, or I could take a few minutes and look at Mark's comments. I just don't have that open here.
Oh,
If we want to make it precise, or we can refer back to his recommendations. You know, for example, do we have a motion to approve the system for Title V compliance conditional to
I can read that off to you if it helps.
provision of the benchmarks as indicated by the health agent, that the wall, the retaining wall, be designed by a structural engineer.
And the board shall receive a copy of the design submitted to the Sherborn inspector.
Mm-hmm.
And
So, and then garbage grinder deed restriction be provided, Board of Health. Then
Before
any
we go
changes
into-
to the system, right, have to come back before the board, and that fees be paid in full. Those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The revision fees, can I, a friendly amendment, the revision fees, the initial application fee was paid. I just want to make sure we're clarifying, it's the outstanding revision fees. And if I can, if this is a friendly co-crafting of the conditions, because so far everything sounds right. Mark put nice language in here that I am just going to plagiarize and read. The condition for the benchmark would read, the benchmarks shall be set with elevations by the surveyor of record with witness stakes prior to the start of construction and after be visible to the board's agent.
Mhm. Okay,
Um,
and then
For
we
the-
should probably use, I mean, everything that you read off earlier
right,
from his memo.
right.
think
And so I think we're
That's,
slightly
that's the
tweaking.
easiest to refer to, and maybe that's what we do.
That is
With the
definitely.
exception of the last two.
The one, in terms of the wall, what he wrote is the recommended condition, of what we agree, just came to is ever so slightly different. And so, I would change it slightly and say, a condition that, the, proposed retaining wall, that the board will receive a copy of the design submitted to the Sherborn building inspector for the proposed retaining wall. Right? That is in no way suggesting that we are reviewing the integrity of that wall.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did everybody follow that path? Did you stick with us?
Could you just say that last one more time? I
Sure. I'm
pulled it
trying
in my
to.
head whether it includes that, and then there's a copy for Board of Health files.
Right, and so I'm slightly changing based on the conversation we just had. Mark had originally recommended that we require the design of the wall shall address, and he listed all of the particular factors of which the wall needs to be designed to and who it has to be designed by. We are deferring to the building code that will happen, and instead we are setting the condition that the board shall receive a copy of the retaining wall design submitted to the Sherborn building inspector. Do you feel good about that, Terrell, or am I missing something? Anyone else?
I guess I'd want to know from the building inspector if they always require professional structural engineer. for that.
Yes, it's required, any wall over 4 feet or above requires an engineer's stamp. And that's what the building inspector is not a structural engineer and doesn't know what's a good wall and a bad wall. But the building inspector makes sure that an engineer puts their stamp on it, which is a very important part of the process.
Yeah. And
Julie,
4 feet and over, or over 4 feet?
I believe it's 4 feet and over, but I'm not sitting in front of the code, so I don't want to say for sure.
Okay.
It,
So-
it will be
Because it's
engineered.
at 4 feet right now. It's exactly 4 feet.
Yes,
So that
and it's going
question
to
is
be
important.
okay. If you want to
Should
make
we-
a condition that the wall is designed and stamped by an engineer, make the condition. It's not in Title V, but go ahead. Julie, can you, while we're exhaling, can you remind me, 50-foot benchmarks, garbage grinder, retaining wall? There was a fourth. What was it?
The first was the benchmarks.
Yes.
As recommended in the memo number 3.
Yep.
The wall for the
Yep.
design plans, the garbage grinder deed restriction.
What was the fourth? I thought there was a fourth.
Oh, there's 5.
Oh, okay.
4
Yep.
was our standard, any changes to lot lines
Yep.
or any of the
Yep.
anything relative
Yep.
to the Title V design.
Okay.
Needs to come back to us. And the final was that outstanding revision fees be paid
Yep.
in full before release.
Okay.
So
Thank
that's
you.
5.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, gang, I did not perfectly craft the wording of these, but it sounds like we need a discussion on a few of them anyways. Was that a motion, Daryl?
It could be a motion if we feel comfortable that we're gonna have the right language at the end. I think most of it can be guided by Mark's with the few tweaks that we've discussed.
Right.
Garbage grinder standard, outstanding revision fees paid in full, not standard, but that's pretty much it. Changes to the system standard. Anyone else have any observations on this? No?
Why
Okay.
don't we, okay, if we're calling that a crafted enough motion, I move that motion.
Yes, we have the recording to listen to then write it all out nice and neat in the next few days.
All right, so moved.
Second. Any other discussion? And just a reminder, this is for voting on the whether the system complies with Title V.
Well, it's to issue the Title V
Our
permit.
approval, yes, and our approval is subject to the 5 conditions that we've identified and been discussing. So, any other comments? Hearing none.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye. Okay.
Thank you. And I just want to say that that meeting a couple of weeks ago, where we actually were a little bit collaborative, the board and I hope that's a model for the future. I'm appreciative of that. And thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
In that spirit, then I'd like to encourage you, please consider elaborating on the conditions that will help to compensate for a system that we ordinarily would not permit in town.
I'm sorry, Daryl, I didn't actually,
So things like
I didn't understand
things
what you
like
said.
lack of avoiding pesticide use, which you say you don't use at your own property, don't
That's
have
correct.
a need for.
Right.
The added burden of nitrogen compounds in particular from fertilizers will not serve the site well, given that it's going to be a bit marginal given the Title V fill that's required for the mounded system, not treating to the same degree.
There are many of these things,
The
Daryl.
systems in town we would usually have.
Yeah, there are many of these things, Daryl, that we agree on, and I pursue in my own life. I pursue it in the development work that I do. Where I fall down is I have a big issue being regulated when on a 40B project in ways that are not applicable to market rate homes. And some of those things you mentioned, I will put those into the condo. I will tell them not to use nitrogen fertilizers, all those types of things. I'm more than happy to do that because I believe those things. But I don't believe that if it's not in our if you don't make me do it at my house, then you shouldn't make me do it if I live in a 40B project. That's the whole issue for me. And but I am appreciative that we were able to actually do some collaborative things a couple of weeks ago. I thought that was a model for all of us in what is a pretty horrible world right now. So And I apologize, Rebecca, that I got so hot about what you said, but these are tough times, and particularly tough times right now for people who have a lot less than the rest of us, and it's pretty darn sad. I'm sorry for preaching.
I think you might have
At the
misunderstood.
same
what I
token,
said.
I think what Rebecca is saying is she doesn't want people to have even more hardships that result from environmental degradation. So, and I don't disagree with that concept. Okay,
Who do I?
we have other business that we need
Thank
to
you,
get
Bob.
to.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Night, Bob.
All right.
All right, I see we have Tom
Yeah.
Schrader on, and I suspect,
Mhm.
Tom, thank you for sticking with us. I bet Tom had shown up previously to talk about avian flu. I don't know if
Mhm.
that's if he's been hanging with us just for that or not, but I'm going to friendly suggestion we go to avian flu next. In case that is why Tom's here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Or if he just wants to hang out with us, we are always welcome here, Tom.
Okay.
Do you want me to pull up the DPH site when you're, would that be helpful, Daryl, or not
Yeah,
necessarily?
that might be, yeah, that could be an easy way to walk through it.
Okay, just give me a second. I have to sort through my thousands of windows.
And so I also had communications while you're doing that with the animal inspector, Kim Morrow. And she does periodically deal with animals who are suspected of having had rabies and taking care of getting them evaluated and what have you. But the departure from what she usually does is that if it was a large number of animals, or really even, I don't even know what that threshold would be necessarily, but it would certainly be beyond what we should expect her to do. And it seems like the state is stepping in for, I don't know at what point they call something a mass die-off under these circumstances, but that there can be support from outside the town for managing that. There's also an animal control officer, but that's under the police. And so I'm also, we would need to work with the police to understand how they might authorize that person to work on different aspects of this issue. But the animal inspector is certainly concerned about how it may be impacting animals in and around town, including we do have a number of people across town who keep chickens. So that's something, certainly outreach to those folks to make sure that this is on their radar and what to look out for. Keeping an eye on the waterfowl that are congregating around Farm Pond. And perhaps I'm most familiar with Farm Pond, but I don't know what some of the other water bodies in town are like. For example, there's a pond near the intersection of Pleasant Street and Maple, and quite a few others around town that people may be able to see what's any unusual dynamics going on with the animals there.
And I think not just water bodies. I think it can also be kind of fields or other areas where the birds
Right.
be.
Right.
So I think it's really anywhere.
Mm. So, and Tom, I don't know if the Farm Pond Advisory Committee has been having any more discussions about this.
I don't, since I'm not on that committee, I'm not sure. I know
Oh,
from,
okay.
I know from the emails that they've participated in with you and me. There's definitely, concern since other towns in Massachusetts are reporting positives.
Yes.
Um,
So, again, there aren't particular requirements as of yet, but there is good guidance on the site.
mhm. I know that
Right.
I'm sorry, Daryl, I can't see you to see.
No,
your-
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I know that the guidance was co-issued with Wildlife and Fisheries as well as the Department of Agricultural Resources.
Mhm.
And this is something I am completely ignorant to, and potentially people here in town are much more knowledgeable. My other fellow board members or Tom who have lived here longer than for the agricultural committee, I kind of don't know how they network or intersect with any of the anyone who has just a backyard flock or anyone who's actually a farm here in town. But I'm wondering if information has also been sent to them, or I just want to make sure we're having effective distribution across all of the different layers of this.
Well, I have to say that since this issue has come up, I really haven't had the time to take care of that, but that has been communicated with the first group that was circulating some information, which was Farm Pond Committee. Jeannie Guthrie is connected with that, came to the Board of Health, Animal Inspector, Groundwater Protection Committee. I don't know how it made it to you, but I mean, you do so much with Farm Pond. I assumed that was kind of the link for you. But that is something I thought the Agricultural Committee could be helpful for outreach, but I don't know if anyone really knows about people keeping chickens on their property. I don't know if that gets reported in specifically. I don't know how many chickens it takes to trip the threshold. That might be a little harder to identify.
And even if it's not through any type of a regulatory mechanism, I'm actually thinking through kind of the informal social networks that automatically exist within, the overlap within the communities. I think that's what I was kind of thinking as well.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if there's anyone in particular for whom this issue is intriguing. I mean, it's certainly interesting and important, but I guess I mean in the way that someone is eager to advance those communications and outreach and networking within the town. And again, the Farm Pond Advisory Committee seems quite keen on getting engaged in this as well. A dynamic group, thoughtful group. So
I can reach out to, I would have to go and look at the website, the town website, to see kind of who the contact person is for the agricultural committee, but I can just reach out and see what they've received and if they have questions, and just, if nothing else, just to facilitate open communication. Hopefully we will not have an issue, but I would like to make sure that we have good networking prior, if we do.
mm-hmm.
So I'll reach out to them just to see.
Sounds good.
And I realize I may not have pulled up the right spot, but I believe in the communication, there is I'm sorry, I should stop sharing and find it. There is a form, and if anyone else is faster with this, or maybe Mark, you've looked at this, I know that there is a form to fill out, in particular if you find, right now the threshold has been 5 or more dead birds. But I don't think that, are these on, I haven't checked the town website. I don't think any of these links and background information is up on the website.
I
Is
don't
that-
believe it is yet, but it should be.
Okay.
And
Okay.
in this guidance, I'm on the same guidance. I'm just moving around in it. It's pretty much advising people not to handle dead birds unless they have proper personal protective equipment. So they can call the animal inspector or the animal control officer, or they can reach the Department of Agriculture if they have their own chickens, or they can go to www.mass.gov. I believe it's dead birds. And that's right in these links. So I think this would be important. It's report birds, not dead birds, report birds. And that would be the best bet to put this guidance on the website. I was at a public health conference. They have monthly overviews, and Dr. Catherine Brown from the Department of Public Health was speaking about personal pets as well. And I think this would be very interesting for the community to be sure to keep your, like cats, especially, and dogs, inside as much as you can or fenced in, so they don't have interaction with any of these possible dead birds. And there was also discussion on raw milk as well as raw meat that may be fed to pets, and that shouldn't be done because there's a chance that the avian flu virus could be in that as well, in that food as well. That was something new I haven't heard until this past yesterday actually. So that new information coming out, and I expect that the DPH will be submitting we'll be submitting additional information on being careful and protective against the avian flu. Thank you.
Tom, did you want to weigh in on anything else?
No, just that I would encourage your board to post something, in those emails. Jeannie Guthrie offered to post anything on the town website, and I would take advantage of it, just for that convenience for residents, because a lot of people with pets, a lot of people with chickens, and exposure to geese in town. Thanks.
And I'm probably not the only person who has bird feeders outside either. So.
And I haven't heard much. I haven't heard much in terms of the songbird population being affected by this, and I don't believe the current guidance is to do anything different with your backyard bird feeders, is my recollection, at least the last time I was reading, because I also am an avid birder. But I think the rest of what Mark said, absolutely, in terms of, are we in hunting season right now? Just, I'm showing how ignorant I am.
No, I think it ended December 1st, maybe, or January 1st.
Okay. Sounds good.
And I have some recollection. I thought about the birds, because backyard birds, songbirds, because I thought somewhere I read something about that, which I was surprised by, but I don't recall where I saw that.
Yeah. Completely possible.
So now it's just a timeliness issue of how to get things up, because I'm a little squeezed on time these days.
Okay. I think we will at least post the resources. I mean, it would be lovely if we had a basic Q&A, but I don't know if we need to recreate the wheel on that, right? I'm sure someone has done that. Like, what if my dog finds a dead bird? What should I do, right?
And there are really just a few links that if we post them, it'll take people to the state websites and departmental websites. I don't really see reproducing anything, because or even trying to extract and summarize. If it was me searching, I'd want to be taken to those websites too, where I could dive in deeper if I wanted to.
And Daryl, they're always welcome to call our department, and if we don't have the answers, I can get them, or Jean or any of the staff can get them to the right department at the state level. We all want to keep the same message to go along with what the state is producing. And if it's a part that hasn't been noted yet within the Department of Public Health information, we can find personnel at that level who can help out, as well as Department of Agriculture and Division of Wildlife and Fisheries. So they're helping out with that so we can keep the same message out there. So that's why I suggest we go forward and post the DPH information. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to move on from that to something a little simpler, at least on the surface. So the public health nurse, who is coming to us through the shared services arrangement that we have with the Charles River Public Health District, is going to be coming to Sherborn this coming Tuesday, weather permitting, to become familiar with the town and have a chance to meet people and start diving into some information about the town. And her name is Gail Barsa, and Gael. And she'll be with us about 1 to 2 days a week, working from the Board of Health office area. And for Tuesday, so she'll be coming in and basically be meeting with, for example, Council on Aging and Town Administration, obviously the Board of Health staff, any Board of Health members who want to meet her that day. I'll try and give you a better idea of some schedule. She might be coming at about 8 in the morning, but that hasn't been finalized just yet. Then we'll try to get her familiar with things. She'll have spent Monday in Dover, where she'll spend most of her time. And what was the other thing I was just going to say? And then she is going to be getting training through the shared services training program for a couple of weeks. And one of the trainings she'll be getting is in the MAVEN system. So, and that's the system used for tracking infectious diseases. The Visiting Nurse Association had been managing the information flow and follow-up through MAVEN for us for many years. And they just had their MAVEN person resign because they're going to a job with the state in nursing. So we actually, this is lucky timing for us because the shared services was able to pick up on where the Visiting Nurses Association left off, and they've been bridging until we get the public health nurse here who can then continue once she's trained. So that's the basics of what's happening with the public health nurse at the moment.
That's all wonderful. And can I just clarify, Daryl, so will that terminate our VNA contract? Or is that not?
Yes, I thought it was, but we received a letter that talked about it being 90 days out, but I need to talk to them about what services are going to be able to take place, because MAVEN was really one of the key services that we were getting from them. So I have to reach back out.
All right.
This was today, Wednesday, just learned about it
Yeah, I think
recently that they had lost that nurse position.
Yeah. Yeah, the timing of this of Gail coming on is perfect. It's great.
So Daryl, it's not a general meet and greet for the public on the 11th?
I don't know that that would be so productive, because she is really she will just be learning about Sherborn.
Okay.
And I think needs time to be able to dive in. She's an experienced, outgoing intelligent person. So there could be some things to say, but I don't know. Interesting concept of whether, I don't think there's enough time to really publicize it, but at some point, one of the things that we'd like her to work on is some sort of community assessment as to whether there are any outstanding public health needs that people have that just we haven't been as aware of. An example of that, and this ties into the opioid funds that we have, is how to identify populations within our town that might need services related to opioids. And there are ways to get some insight as to whether people in Sherborn, I'm sure they are affected in some way, but we don't know how many. Can we identify them? Is there any way that we could support them, and how? And so that, to me, is something that the public health nurse could work on in conjunction with the shared services program, where the 4 towns have been talking about pooling resources and trying to put a cohesive program together across the towns. But as I said, she'll talk to the Council on Aging already about her coming in, and I've notified different groups that if they'd like to meet and talk with her, including the library, because I thought that might be a venue for events, or they might be plugged in different ways. There's certainly lots of presentations that go on at the library, and that might be a way for her to connect with the community on topics in the future. So does anyone think they would be able to meet with her sometime on Tuesday? Of course, there'll be plenty of other days coming too, but or you could think about it and let me know.
No, I know I won't be able to. I have to go into Boston on Tuesday.
Yes, I'm planning to try to go there and just have some oversight on at least part of the day to help out. And I'll just bring my laptop and do my work from town hall for a while.
What are the hours that she'll be here again?
I'm guessing at the moment, because I haven't gotten final confirmation, but something like 8 to 4, 9 to 4, I don't know exactly.
I might be able to come by in the afternoon, but I can't tell you right now whether I definitely.
Okay. You could just text me if you want to check, because again, the weather is currently predicted to not be very great on Tuesday. So
Thanks.
Feel free to check back in. Okay.
I will try
Go
to,
ahead.
if she's going to be here longer than I expected. I might be able to come in the lunchtime-ish hour. Is a possibility for me, at least, to come and say hello.
Okay. All right. Let's see, I'm just jumping around here a bit. Oh, actually, Stephen, would you like to give the brief and redacted confidential information update on the job posting?
Sure, I can talk about that. So last week, well, before last week, we ended up finishing up the documentation, the job description, the job posting, and also the process that we use. So those 3 documents are done. Last week, we had a meeting with Jeremy, Daryl, and I, and we had a chance to kind of walk through some of the thoughts we had, the strategy we were looking to use for finding our health administrator. So Jeremy had posted the job the job posting. And we've got, I think is it 3 or 4? We've got 3 or 4 resumes that
Yeah.
have come in. So those, at this point, Daryl and I go through those, and we'll see if we move those folks on to the next steps. But in the meantime, it's out there. We're getting responses. So yeah, making good progress.
Thank you.
Yes, great.
Thank you, guys. That's wonderful.
Thanks.
Daryl,
Okay. Yes,
I was going to, if we're moving on and we're gonna segue into the supplemental health agent, I'd be happy to leave that one if you want.
yes, go ahead.
I'm aiming for that one, that magic. What did you say? Well, I guess we surpassed the hour and a half. And so in terms of the agenda item for the supplemental health agent, just to give, because I know 3 out of 5 of us are fairly new to this board. Just some background. So in 2016 or about there, before the pandemic, the board had hired a supplemental health agent. This was someone who kind of came and helped with agents work as needed. It wasn't necessarily a set number of hours. That kind of continued with this person on and off or as needed. I mean, really, Bill, a lot of this is, I mean, the agent's work is truly driven by replacement septics or new developments. A lot of that slowed down or even came to a halt during COVID. That person has functionally moved on and is not really available to us at all. And so, you know, we've had a couple of acute issues that have pushed us to needing a supplemental health agent again, and we've had to find folks in a pinch, which is not at all the ideal of what we should be doing. And so clearly we have a challenge where our agent can easily be going over 20 hours a week with the volume of work that comes in as it ebbs and flows. And we need to have an alternative to that. So we do have access to a Title V inspector and a soil evaluator through shared services, but she wears many, many hats within shared services and has kind of limited availability to us. So she is not necessarily able to handle the full breadth of what we might need support with. And so Daryl and I talked about this, and I think this is the discussion for the board, is I think it would make a lot of sense for us to put another job posting out for a supplemental health agent so that we can kind of see who is out there who would be, you know, right now we've found people just for very finite scopes of work, specific projects. We need something more sustainable and long-term. I would actually like to see not even just one, but potentially 2 people who we could have functionally on call to be able to be available to us as needed as the work comes up. So my hope is that the board will support that idea of a job posting. I think we would have to go back and historically look what was posted, compare that to the responsibilities of our current health agent. This would not encompass things like the food inspector or any of that. This would really be related to wells and septics is my thinking. But what do folks think about getting a job posting out there?
So would we first need to like fund the line item in the budget?
Well, I think
How would you pay them?
yeah, right. So I think the challenge is we are a service-based department, right? And so right now, our health agent is budgeted for 20 hours or less. If that is averaging over that, then you know we would be having to look at benefits, which is a significant cost increase, and whether or not whether we're paying that to our agent in addition to benefits, or we are paying that to someone else. I mean, it's the ebb and flow of the work that comes before us. We can't turn away someone who needs to replace a failed septic system, right? And so I think that, yeah, I mean, that is the challenge. It is a very tight municipal budget right now, but the work is there.
I guess that also ties in with the fees. If the fees would cover that person's work, then we really don't have an issue paying
Yeah.
them.
I think that'll be our next discussion point after we talk about this one.
Mm.
It's on, we have that on the agenda too. They all go together.
Yes,
Well,
and
I think you
agree
bring
with,
up a good point that if we've got a lot of projects now that we're not totally post-COVID, but in a different era here, and there's more than 20 hours of work, and Mark can't do it all. We do need to have someone available.
yes,
Yeah.
that's a big driver for this, is there is a fair amount to be done. And I do like the idea of more than one, because when we're getting the supplemental health agents, and there are quite a number of people who might be a health director, for example, in another municipality, who are interested in additional work on the side, but that also means that they're unlikely to be looking for 20 hours a week on the side. And so, and certainly some of the demands that health agent has in Sherborn can come up quickly, because field work is both weather dependent, equipment scheduling dependent. There are a lot of factors, and it's not always as neatly arranged as some other kinds of things, like an office meeting, completely different than that. So I think just for flexibility and likelihood that someone would be able to make an appointment out in the field in particular, then having more than one supplemental agent would be helpful.
I think, if I may, it's a proactive step, and the board should start doing, the research on this to see if you can find someone. You might not find them during regular working hours if they already are committed to another town full-time, but at least they'll be available even if it's after their full-time town. And I think that would create a nice base. It's unfortunate, but we're not like the fire departments where they have mutual aid. We don't have that. I think the region has been helping in a tremendous way, but we still, are lacking that backup. And I'm glad the board is looking at this, and you may find maybe one or two, and I think two would be advisable, potential supplemental health agents to help out. I can mention one area of work that's going to probably bring an increase in demand is accessory development units, and I will be asking to put that on the next agenda. We've already had several people inquiring, so that will create additional work as well. And again, it's difficult when it gets busy to keep the hours within the 20, so that will help in that case. So I think it's a good start, especially if you need someone right away. It's hard to draw a health agent out of another town because there's requirements that they report first to administration on their secondary employment, just as we are doing here too in Sherborn. But again, it's the right step to take, in my view, is to start the process now and have people available. So I think it's a good step. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess our next step is really to perhaps excerpt from the full health agent job description and narrow in on where we think we need these supplemental services. And so is there anyone interested in working on that? or think about it and let Julie or me know.
So you're looking at someone putting together drafting a job posting?
Yeah.
Sure, or I could. What, we probably have something in town to start with? I
Yeah,
assume,
and
yes.
that's where I'm thinking that the health agent job description would be a starting point and then narrow it down to most likely the well and septic
Yeah.
kind of work.
I'd be glad to assist whichever board member would like to take the project on, if you so wish.
Okay.
I'm happy to help with that too. Am I on mute?
No?
No, we heard
Okay,
you.
good. Sorry, I just didn't see it light up. So I thought maybe
Okay.
that was
So
All
do,
right.
so that sounds great. Thank you, Rebecca and Diana. I guess maybe we'll just kind of continue to have this on the board's agenda. And if you guys, because we can help narrow down and, specific responsibilities or any wording for the posting, and then we'll follow the same process that we're doing for the administrator. But that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to go to a short one in a way, but not trivial. The 2024 annual report is, I don't know how many people have had a chance to see one of the annual reports for town, but different departments, committees, etc., have sections in the report that describe it's a year in review, essentially. So Jean has been collecting data to fill in for that, getting some help from the public health nurses for some of the data about infectious diseases in 2024 in Sherborn. Although some of the reporting has changed for that, used to be, we might get, how do I describe this? Given the small population, we might have one case of something or zero, and it'll flip-flop between those numbers. So now they're only reporting anything less than, they'll report anything below 5 as just less than 5. So you don't really have a sense of how many people. And again, given that when we used to get reports of cancer incident rates in town, and again, it would be more like a binary on-off, 0 or 1, and that would change the percentages of that would be used to calculate, does your town have above the average incident rate for that particular type of cancer? But with such a small population, it was really hard to gauge whether we had some sort of significant environmental factor, for example, or whether it was just a function of one person happened to contract the disease and it would show up, and it would skew the results and make it appear as if we had some major environmental problem. So anyway, so that data is being worked on. I don't know if there are any particular sections, and I'd have to review our annual report again to see if there's anything that might be up someone's alley that you'd want to write about or describe things that have gone on in the past year. Certainly during COVID, we had all sorts of different kinds of things to report in the annual report. But
where is the data collected and who's collecting it?
Jean is doing a lot of the collection, and the public health nurses are helping with some other. So the data that Jean can see readily is in the report are number of septic permits and well permits and food permits. Those numbers are.
And if I can add my,
report.
sorry, Darryl.
Mm-hmm.
I should raise
yes,
my
and Mark
hand.
has a section.
Mine's more of a summary. of that data that Gene collects. And some of the changes in my report are climate resulting from climate change, such as beach closures, such as wells drying out. So I try to add those highlights every year when we see an additional well request failures due to climate change in most respects, and even the beach closures. The water over the past years has been increasing in temperatures. So it gives a summary of some of the highlights plus the routine, such as septic and wells. So it does help with the full report, and I know the chair usually will summarize the reports in most cases, but it does
I'd be
help.
happy to be involved with that. Sounds interesting.
It is.
I don't know how you need me, but if you do, I'm happy to help.
Okay. If you want, take a look at a past annual report online on the town website and see if there's a section in particular that you feel you have something you want to write. Thinking of the avian flu, I could believe that'll be something in the 2025 annual report. I hope not. I hope it does not impact us significantly, but springboarding from that, I wonder, and this, I don't know if Tom is still on, but it might be interesting to have in these reports some of the interdepartmental and inter-board and committee collaborations that take place around these issues, and have some mention of that somewhere. That seems to be taking place a fair amount of late. And you also made me think of it, Mark, when you were talking about the changes at Farm Pond, the algae blooms and rising temperatures and what have you. Okay, so anyway, we have about a week left for any kind of contributions on that front. I don't know, I feel like we still have a few things we have to take care of. Fee restructuring. Julie, do you have a short version of explaining anything on that?
At the most recent shared services meeting. So quick recap, back in spring, summer of 2024, maybe it was even in the fall, I can't remember the exact timeline, we identified that we need to be revisiting our fee schedule. We've noted from our staff that the fees that are incurred do not always line up with the amount of staff hours that are put in. We brought this to shared services as a need that we have, and we heard from all of the other communities in shared services that they too would like to revisit their fee schedule. And so they, shared services has contracted with a consultant to kind of put together, they put together this calculator. So it's based on an MAHB fee calculator, of which they have then customized for each community. It will require an input of time for us to be able to look and say how much time, for instance, a food permit takes, if it is an annual inspection or if it is a temporary food permit for like a mobile vendor, or for a well installation. That's particularly tricky because there is a huge range of time for us to be able to go in and add customization to that calculator. But it's nice to have that as a tool that we can start to work with. And so really the next step, if we're going to utilize that tool, and it hasn't come to us, I think that they're in the process of, I know they've done, you have to remind me, Daryl, it's Dover and
They did.
who have completed.
Yeah.
Yep, who have completed it. And I think that they said it was typically like 11 staff hours to be able to, the necessary inputs in order to customize that. That's given that we have a we're running lean on staff, that's a lot of time. And so I think we need to figure out if there is any way that us as the board can assist with that. it's tricky because the knowledge is within the staff who actually know how long they typically take. But I think, well, once that comes to us, we can look at it and see if there's any way that as a board, we can collaborate and get that up and running. And then in theory, we would be able to kind of help adjust our fee schedule. I believe they're also going to have a way to compare to other similar communities, at least within shared services. Am I recalling that correctly, Daryl?
Yeah, it wasn't wholly clear to me how much of that they have, but they did mention it.
Right. And so I think this will be a useful tool for us to, as part of revisiting this fee schedule. I think that we also already have a good sense of where we probably need to address our fee structure where it's not quite adequate. But that is one of the things that certainly for the 2024 budget, once we kind of factored in the fees collected, we found that they made a huge difference. I think at that point, our budget was only maybe 2,000 or 3,000 over what we had budgeted when you calculated in the fees. And so really adjusting the fee schedule could bring us pretty close to breaking even. So I think working on this would make a heck of a lot of sense. Obviously, this is what we would have an administrator do. And so in the interim, I think we have to continue to plug along with this. But it's nice that Shared Services has provided us this consultant and is helping us with a tool.
Okay, now we'll just take care of a few more administrative items. So the, Mark, I recall that we just, a few months ago, issued an installer permit for Repco, I believe.
Yes,
So-
they were finishing up a 2024 project, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
They're renewing,
Okay,
and I'd recommend approval.
okay. So do we have a motion to approve the disposal works installer permit for 2025 for Repco Inc.?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
And Daryl Beardsley, aye. So there is a new form for employees regarding whether they have outside employment. This is something that has come up in the past and that at least the Board of Health had for employees, but there is now a more standardized town-wide form that's being rolled out. And it's filled out by any employees, and then it needs to be authorized by a board member. So we need to, or signed by a board member, we need to authorize one of us to do that signing. I'm happy to do that because I go to town hall periodically, and so it's okay with me. But if anyone else would like to do it, also fine with that.
Can I just add in the form? I'm looking at the form. It explicitly says department head. And so in lieu of having an administrator at this time, I think we need to authorize a board member to act in this capacity until there is an administrator hired. So I think this would be
Okay.
But I suspect this form will be one of those we do every single year. So when people have to update is what I imagine. I think it makes sense for, I mean, just in terms of structure, it makes sense for the chair to be the one to do it. But I don't think it doesn't have to be the chair, but it's the thing that makes the most structural sense to me.
All right, then I'll let someone else make the motion.
Make the motion to appoint Daryl, to, I guess what, give Daryl to authorize Daryl to be able to sign the, what is it, the outside employment form.
Perfect. So moved. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Discussion?
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye. Okay, meeting minutes. I will say that I spent a lot of time on the September 18th minutes to try to include a new return to a style of documenting the variances with the regulatory language for each one, and made some other mostly administrative changes, and also there was a missing vote on one topic. So that's been added based on listening to the recording and just trying to capture the small paragraph that issue in the vote.
There was a whole agenda
Okay.
item missing from those meetings.
Yeah. So in any case, made a fair number of changes. We do always have the recording to fall back on, although every time I have to go to recordings to extract information, I realize how valuable paper minutes are, because it only takes a few moments to find what one needs, and it takes quite a while going through the recordings. I don't know, did others have a chance to make any of the comments you would want to make for the September 18th?
So I reviewed all of these before, but I didn't see them again. Or they were expected to go back and find the old minutes?
Yes, I think they had been distributed before.
Okay.
But at the time, the 9/18 just, I knew it needed some time and to work on.
I would like to review them again before I comment, but I don't know whether.
Well, we really do.
I know
need to
they're
get
late.
minutes. Yeah,
I know.
they're quite late. Anyway, I'm done, I think, with what I can do for 9/18 and 10/2. 10/16 still needs some of the administrative kind of changes that I did with the 9/18 in terms of putting in the language for the motions more clearly.
I have gone through September 18 too, and did notice a number of changes. I have spent a lot of time going through October 2nd. I basically rewatched that whole meeting, and then had some changes. In particular, I mean, my stance with minutes is any board member can, if they feel like their comments were not accurately represented, it's for that member to then to edit. But for any members of the public or other town officials, I think if obviously they're not reviewing the drafts, I want to make sure that they are actually accurately captured. And I think in that meeting it was relevant. And so I had some changes in there just to add, nothing that was taken away other than like some grammatical issues, but some significant changes. And the same thing for November 6th. I had a number of additions, and I think, for context, and Darrell, I would be happy to share my working Excel file if it would help people to kind of get a tally of what's going on with the meeting minutes.
Okay.
Do folks want to see that? I felt like I needed better organization about what was going on, and so you're going to see my working document. Hopefully, we don't regret this. But let me see if I can make a But I just needed to do a comprehensive list of what was going on. Can everyone see this clearly enough, or do I
Yeah.
need to zoom it?
Yeah,
somehow?
no, that's.
Okay. So just to be clear, what we currently have a draft are, so September 4th, we approved at our January 8th meeting. That has not been posted to the town website yet. I think we need to confirm that the town clerk is in receipt.
Mhm.
We have receipt of the September 18th meeting minutes, which is what Daryl was just commenting on. I also noticed that they needed a substantial amount of information added, and like I said, agenda topics were
Can you
missing.
tell me the meeting that we reviewed, the September 18th minutes, when were they sent to us? Do you have that by any chance?
I think what we
It would
should,
be tied to the, I guess you'd have to look at an old agenda.
Yeah, I would just go through. If we can, I don't know whether we need to approve these today, but if we can wait till the next meeting, I will go back and review every single one again, because they were all reviewed at the time. I just was out of town and we had a couple deaths in the family. So I have to go back, and I would love to have the opportunity to just review them again before we finalize them. But I also understand that they're very tardy, so it's up to you.
Okay, so keep going, Julie, and then I'll fill in on another aspect of
sure.
logistics.
So October 2nd, we have the draft from the minutes clerk. Again, I said I had some edits that were beyond just grammar to that one. I've started working on September 16th. For a lot of these, I find myself just going back through and watching most of the meeting, so it takes a lot of time to make sure that things are accurately captured. So it's not just my personal notes, but I try to make sure I look and see what was actually said. And I have also gone through November 6th and had some edits there as well. So, and that was from our minutes clerk. So then for the two, I guess that's 3 meetings in November. I think actually November 20th when I wrote it on there. Do I have that correct? Did we meet on the 20th? I need to double check that that's not just a typo and I entered it twice. November, December, obviously January, and today, we do not have draft minutes from our minutes clerk. And so it's, it's very hard to find a minutes clerk. I think that she is doing a great job for a very reasonable fee, but it's slow coming. In terms of process, one of the things that I wonder, particularly if, folks are making substantive edits, I think it is important that the board get to review the minutes that are being voted for approval and posted. And so I don't think it should be done by any board member, and in the absence of an administrator, I think that sending it back to the minutes clerk to then incorporate the edits that we send her probably makes sense, right? And then once she has updated the minutes, again, beyond anything basic grammatical kind of stuff like that, then I think that needs to be redistributed to the board for review and then vote. And so I think that's the question to everyone, if that process makes sense. This is kind of new because Ellen took meticulous notes, and we had her for decades and decades. And so this is kind of new territory where we've had these challenges with minutes. But do folks agree with that process of substantive edits? Daryl, should we have them sent to Jean, and then Jean will compile them and send them to Kristan? What is the process?
I might try to help out because
Yeah,
Jean is doing so very much, but that might be one of the ways I want to work that out with Jean, or might be the only way. I really haven't thought of another option, because I did speak with the minutes clerk who we have, and she is willing to take on even the minutes that she hasn't written and weave in people's comments into a final document. So she is here to do that.
which is great.
So it would be just similar to what we did when we'd send things in to Ellen. And so now it'll just somehow be making its way over to the minutes clerk with as a minimal burden on Jean, I hope.
Would it be better if we had a alternative point person that you send edits to, and that person aggregates takes all of those individual files and sends them to the minutes clerk saying, it would be the series of files for everyone who has edits, right? And then she would have to go through each file and incorporate the edits into a master draft.
Yeah, that aggregation though can't be a board member. That would be open meeting law.
Yeah, that's the
violation.
problem. It can't be a board member. That's why none of us can.
Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
guess it has to be
So-
Jean.
So,
In the
and I
past,
don't know if I
Sorry.
wanted to go
So-
straight to the minutes clerk from each individual board member, or I don't know. Are there any pitfalls on that?
It's just the timing, I suppose, because how would she know when everyone is done that is going to have an edit? Unless we set up
Right.
lines.
Deadlines, huh?
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying that.
when Ellen took the minutes, the vast majority of the time, my corrections were just tiny little grammatical
Oh.
or,
Same with mine, Rebecca, but she was
Yeah.
so thorough.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember very many examples of when there were substantive edits. There were only a couple instances,
Right.
but
That
um,
rarely happened, and until we can kind of get the minutes back on course, it took a long time to go through things. I mean, part of that was trying to come up with like new formats and
well, do you want to try
standards.
having us give them to Jean and just see if it's too much? I mean,
Oh no, it'll go to the minutes. I'll just talk to Jean.
okay.
It's going to say tomorrow. Depends on the weather, whether I make it into town hall tomorrow or not. So I was planning to go into town hall tomorrow. I'll talk to Jean one way or the other, by phone or in person. She has good ideas on this kind of thing.
Can I push
All
the
right.
idea? But do we, I mean, at this point, we don't have minutes. Well, I mean, we just need to get, make sure the September 4th minutes get to the clerk to get posted. But we are in possession of drafts of 1, 2, 3, 4 meeting minutes that have not been voted on. And trust me, they're not easy minutes. But it seems like we need to kind of, should we say at least the September and the 2 October dates? If nothing else, if folks can get any edits that they have on those to Jean before the next meeting.
Yeah.
So that Jean can get those two, because I mean, the nice thing is we don't have another meeting in February, so that gives a little time. So that we can get those to the minutes clerk. I mean, we kind of need to light a little bit of a fire to get this moving.
I'm
Yeah.
really sorry because we had literally 4 deaths in the last 10 days in our family. Did we review these already, or are these unreviewed by us?
They have been drafted. They need to be, each member needs to go through for edits. What we're
Okay, we
saying
haven't
is,
seen them yet. Okay, that's what I
no,
did.
I think one of the process questions here is, these have been distributed to the board through different methods at different times. And it is hard to keep track. I had to spend a bunch of time looking for stuff. It might be easier if they were aggregated and sent in one email, link. Would that help?
That would be great.
Yes.
That would
Okay,
be
it can't be a board member
Good
again.
idea.
This is the problem. It can't be a board member.
Could you do it?
Yeah, okay, so Daryl, but what we could do is somebody could put together those drafts I mean,
Yeah.
could just link them to an email and then Jean can distribute it. So that way it's
Yeah.
not open meeting law violation. That would be helpful.
Yeah.
And then is that, I mean, maybe asking for everything to be edits submitted before the next meeting for all the September, all the October, and the first November meeting. That might be a lot. Or is anyone feeling ambitious?
You just need us to put those 4 dates onto one document and send them
No,
in.
no, to read through them, to make your edits, whatever method you're using, comments or red letters or whatever, and then that needs to get sent back to Jean, who will forward them on to the minutes clerk. The minutes clerk then will compile.
What about if, like, I could find them, search through and find them, attach them to one document, send it to Jean, everyone gets it, and then each person looks at their own, how they're quoted, and then sends that information back to Jean. And then that would say there should be one email from each person that goes to the minutes clerk via Jean.
Yes, I think that's exactly what we're saying, because it
Okay.
cannot be 2 board members, because that constitutes a discussion.
Right.
And you don't need to look for them. I have them all because I just have a long-standing system where I always take the draft minutes and save them on my computer. So whereas before they were on more ephemeral for the last, whatever, 6 or so months, they've been on an ephemeral, what was it, Google Docs or something else. Came and went, whatever the links were that we were getting for a while. So that's what makes it hard to go back unless you saved it locally. And I have them all, so not
Great.
a problem.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, all right, so we'll
Yeah.
figure out some of the details, and I would say these top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, really, we have to start checking them off because we have a lot to catch up on. And I'm
Yeah.
most of the way through these 5.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I just have one left that I'm at mid. But it's a ton of time. And then after that, we don't have any other drafts from the minutes clerk. And so we'll be caught up in that. We can then review at a more modest pace minutes as they come in from her. But I think she tends to kind of batch them. It seems like she'll send 2 or 3 at a time.
Yeah.
Is it possible
And
to get them?
With the changes and some, I've got now a spreadsheet that has the language for common variances that can be plucked out and plucked into these documents. That should make it easier, and she'll have more of a template to follow. So I think it'll help with her preparation of future minutes. And what was your question?
I don't know. I'm very grateful to the minutes clerk for everything that she's doing. And I don't want to impose or micromanage her process in any way. But if it's possible, if she finishes, say, the November 14th meeting minutes, if she is able to send that draft on, and that can be distributed to the board, it's a little bit easier. And this is for me personally, to be able to deal with 1 at a time than have 3 dumped in your lap at once, right?
Okay.
I don't know if that's realistic, and again, I don't know what her process is, but for me, that would be helpful. It might allow us to kind of incrementally break this down, because it does feel like a large wall.
Okay. I can certainly talk to her about that. Okay.
So this week we should expect 4 meeting minutes in our email?
or 5?
or 5.
1, 2, 3, 4. No, it should be 4, Daryl. It should be September 18th.
Oh, yeah, because
We've
the
already voted on
September
September
4th is already, yeah, okay.
The 18th,
Yep,
October
4.
2nd, October 16th, November 6th.
Okay.
Like I
Yeah.
said, these are busy meetings. Okay,
Okay.
yes, I'll stop sharing.
And then I want to share this last item. I thought this was an interesting message. From the DPH Commissioner Goldstein. It's big enough for people to read.
Yeah.
Make it a little, okay. Could kind of skim it. Maybe I'll have Jean send it out to everyone. Shall I advance?
Sure.
Who was this letter
Yeah.
written to?
To the Department of Public Health
Yeah, employees,
colleagues. And, yeah,
I got it
I
in
was wondering
my,
if you got it.
I got it, yeah.
And also it's coming through the Office of Local and Regional Health. And I thought it was interesting because I don't know if people have been reading about how a lot of information has come off of the CDC website. A lot of the resources that we might turn to for certain topics are gone. And I have to say we saw that during the early days of COVID. The CDC was being prevented from sharing, for example, the handbook that they had prepared over decades on what to do if there was a pandemic, and that wasn't released. So I just thought it was nice to hear, I thought, what the commissioner was thinking.
Call it fortifying.
Pretty depressing.
All right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Agenda items for the next meeting. So next meeting's a month from now. And Certainly, I can't Mark, do you remember about any of Jean's counts on variance hearings?
I believe we have 3 variance hearings for that meeting,
Yeah,
and hopefully they'll all
the
be.
last number heard, so. Okay. Oh, hopefully we'll have something on the job searches. And that avian flu has disappeared from the area. Anyway, if anyone has topics of special concern to them, certainly let Jean or me know, or Julie. And would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? And did we cover everything, I think?
Believe so.
Yeah.
Might have
Okay.
to get a report available by then too.
Yes. All right, so motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? Hearing none.
Steve Constantine, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Carol Beardsley, aye. Thank you so much, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.